Alright everyone, let's play some Blazing Lazers on Wii U. Well, it's going to be a while before we get the officially get the TurboGrafx over on this side of the world. There's the TurboGrafx Mini is available along with the core graphics and the PC Engine Mini in very, very limited quantities in Japan. The date has been pushed back for us in North America and Amazon for, I think, the end of the year, December. However, that being said, the best emulation is available on the Wii U and the Wii, strangely enough, for all these titles. Now, for instance, Lords of Thunder, I guess apparently is a fairly laggy experience on the TurboGrafx Mini, but it's actually very, very well emulated on the Wii and the Wii U. I think Blazing Lazers is okay on that system. But if you already happen to have a Wii U and you want to play this game, then you certainly are able to do that. The eShop is still active, so if you don't have this game already, then you can purchase it still. Who knows how long that's going to last, though. Of course, along with everybody else... Oh, Jesus, I suck. Along with everybody else, I really love this when I first purchased my TurboGrafx. I think the only game that I had when I first got the TurboGrafx was Key Courage, if I remember correctly. But I think this was the second game that I bought. I think they did a pretty good job with the upscaling and the filtering on the Switch, or sorry, on the Wii U and the Wii. Really, it looks really, really good considering you can get HDMI output on this. You know, moves at a full, stable 60 hertz. Which is not exactly easy to do on the system. The Wii U had that PowerPC processor, not really clocking in at a very high megahertz, very limited in its memory bandwidth. And we haven't seen any TurboGrafx titles on the Virtual Console for the Switch. In fact, we may never see that, considering that there's a separate product being sold. And the breadth of titles available on the TurboGrafx Mini is pretty impressive, even though all the games don't really run ideal. And there's some significant omissions. But those omissions, mainly things like legendary acts, have never really been available on other platforms, so I don't know what the legal status on that game is and why it's sort of evaded the emulation scheme. Ah, damn it. But I would like to see it again someday. Without me having to break out my old TurboGrafx. Yeah, bastards. Of course, this game was superseded by Space Megaforce, which I think was called Super Gunhed? Superstar Soldier? Or Superless, sorry. Yeah, and I think that's the better of the games, but Blazing Lazers, of course, is in a class all its own. Still worth playing, even today. Going too fast. That's where I need to concentrate so heavily on this game. This is one of the harder games to play and talk with, just because there's so much that's going on. It's really amazing what they managed to do with the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine. And you have to remember, this was before even the Mega Drive. You know, it was a system that was even more popular than the regular Nintendo, the original Nintendo. And if you look at all the Japanese releases, you can kind of see why, because it was getting, you know, a ton of cross-platform ports back when that was a very, very unusual thing. All the while, you know, improving upon the graphics and sound significantly from the original Nintendo. Along with you know, a ton of original games from Hudson and Red. Red's still developing games now too, but not of these same genres. You know, they're doing a lot of visual novels now. It's kind of interesting to see all the trickery that goes into getting all these objects on the screen. You know, the alternating fields and stuff. You know, all these gigantic bosses. All with very, very little flicker. I think it happens very, very rarely here and there. Yeah, the game's just like bursting with color. In fact, it's one of the things that makes me appreciate the PC Engine or the TurboGrafx more than the Genesis at the time. Was just the amount of color on the screen. You know, even though it didn't have the extra layers of scrolling, which was super nice to see on, you know, most Mega Drive games. There's just something about the amount of color and the speed at which all the scrolling happens, which is very, very satisfying in a lot of the TurboGrafx games. Now, ultimately, it wasn't successful in the States. You know, I had a very, very good run in Japan, and a pretty good run in Europe, although it was still nowhere near as popular as it was in Japan. But I think now that the Mini is coming out, hopefully the general audience will learn to appreciate the games and the system more. It really was ahead of its time. You know, it's a shame that NEC was never able to quite follow up the system with a good successor. You know, they tried with the Super Graphics and they tried with the PC Engine effects, and it just never really worked out for them. Although I really like the super graphics. It's just a beast of a system. You know, the thing is, you know, gigantic. And unfortunately, you know, the game's never really shown much more advancement beyond what the PC Engine had. You know, I mean, Super Ghost Ghost looks great on the system. And, you know, what few games that they did have were pretty cool, but they certainly weren't as impressive as the Super Nintendo at the time. Even though the games were moving at, you know, quite a bit faster refresh rate. And thankfully, the Super Graphics is represented in the TurboGrafx Mini. Really, this whole series of Aleste games, you know, they're very great successors to Star Soldier, you know, which was the original game that kind of started the whole series. And I think even the smaller indie development houses that make shmups, they don't quite have the magic that Compile had in their heydays, when they were making a lot of great Aleste series games. I think Treasure did a pretty good job, sort of taking that mantle and making these overhead shooters, but they are not quite the same. You know, Radiant Silvergun, I think, is the pinnacle of their work. And as I said, I think I'd judge that on a different scale of a top-down shooter than this game. More the Aleste series in its heyday, instead of Super Aleste kind of being at the top of this game. In a lot of ways, you know, Radiant Silvergun is the great successor, but you know, again, not really the same kind of shmup. Just a tiny hair flicker, but never any slowdown, any lag. I see a lot of people rank things like Final Soldier and Superstar Soldier really high. But unfortunately, I never felt that those games, their follow-up games, were as strong as this game until they did Super Aleste. And that I finally felt was a worthy successor to Blazing Lazers, or to Aleste. And while Superstar Soldier and Final Soldier are still fun, you know, don't get me wrong, I like them, but they are not this game. Oh, damn it. Didn't see it. Sometimes it's hard to figure out if you want to keep your speed at 3, or if you want to maybe clock it down to the 2. Yeah, gotta use those bombs. Ah, damn it. Being careless. It's funny, some of the later power-ups actually are really, really useful. Like the number 1 power-up with the force combination. And it causes like these really, really powerful blasts and bullets that just kind of scatter everywhere. It's really cool, but it also leaves your ship like incredibly vulnerable. But the good old laser, that's the most reliable way to finish the game with. You know, as later incarnations of the power-up, you know, kind of fill the screen, even though they move a little slowly. You know, the coverage more than makes up for it. Yeah, this pattern was actually my favorite. I used to keep this pattern through most of the game and just not upgrade. Yeah, then the green multi-bodies can absorb the P shots just from the regular enemies. So really, really useful. Especially as the game gets more and more difficult. I'd say the difficulty's just right too. I mean, it's not too hard, it's not too easy. Yeah, I never found the shield or the homing missiles all that useful. I mean, the multi-bodies were really the best secondary kind of weapons you could use. There we go. That's the final laser upgrade. It's very impressive. I love this old design. I love the old color cycling lights and just the vivid primary colors. Yeah, we don't really see much of that today. There's sort of a strange addiction to the darker, grittier colors. I see a lot of that in the European development, and I don't know if it's just like a preference in the color palette. It may very well be, because it's a... It seems like you can always tell, you know, what part of the world the game is made in just by the colors that they use. The worst combination, though, is the homing laser. Wow, that is a terrible, terrible combination. You'd think that the powerful laser plus homing would be great, but no, it's actually the worst. Okay, I'm not doing bad this time. You know, sometimes I lament about not having my original TurboGrafx anymore. You know, I still have a fair number of the games, but the system itself, you know, unfortunately died out a long time ago, and I never was able to get a replacement within some sort of reasonable cost. Although, you know, you can still pick up a core graphics for relatively cheap, even in this day and age. You know, those things were built like tanks. I don't know what happened with my TurboGrafx; it just didn't work out for some reason. But then I sort of realized that, you know, I had really short cords for the controllers. You know, I'd have to go find a Turbo AV so I could get at least composite video instead of an RF jack. And yeah, the number of headaches that it would take and the quality of what the visuals would look like would, you know, be far inferior to what it would be if I were just to play it on my Wii U or my Swiss or my Wii. And it's just like, yeah, I sort of come to my senses after a while. It's like, yeah, I'll just keep the original cartridges around, but hooking up with TurboGrafx in this day and age on the modern TV, yeah, not fun. Not to mention it wouldn't look anywhere near as good as this scaled image. Ah, son of a bitch. Should've used the bomb. And strangely enough, just the regular #1 weapon, the 5-shot that it fully upgrades to, the 5-shot along with either force or multi-bodies is actually really good. I mean, not quite as good as a laser, but it's pretty. It lasts you a good majority of the game if you just use that combination. Ah, son of a bitch. Damn it. I was doing so well. I don't know, and this is the kind of tough game I prefer. Something that's that is difficult but fair, and it's pretty much exactly the same every time you play it. I mean, basically the only thing that really changes is you, so you can use those memorization skills and, and actually have them, you know, play a part in your overall strategy. Whereas games nowadays, there's so much variation in how they set up situations when you play that your memorization skills really don't factor very high into your success. And even in this game, even though it plays the exact same, you know, the enemies shoot in the same way, in the same patterns for the most part, it still manages to be incredibly challenging and fun. You know, things don't have to have that variance in order for it to be fun. You know, they can be perfectly fine as a static memorization games and still challenge you. Modern game designers just sort of forget that. It's like, you know, it's okay if things repeat. And if they're predictable, that doesn't mean that the game is boring. It just means that you have to put your situations, you know, the game's scenarios, the game's plot, you know, the game's gameplay, that just has to be interesting all the way through, even if it does the same thing every single time you play. Ugh. I'm reminded of that every time I play something like a Sekiro or a Neo. It's like, yes, it's nice that those are varied experiences, but it's also nice if I could just have it be a reliable, memorized experience as well. I guess I might as well grab it. Yeah, trouble keeping track of those bullets. It's nice to have. It's nice to have a power-up that actually fills the screen instead of a power-up that just does like 2 points more damage. And even better yet, things that fill the screen to shoot with. You know, I was hoping Aero Blasters, or otherwise known as Airbuster in the States, would have made it on the PC Engine Mini or TurboGrafx Mini, but I think there were some licensing issues. That was actually one of my favorite games on the system, you know, as a horizontal shooter. But unfortunately, it's just one of those things that just never really sees the light of day anymore. I don't know if people talked about it either. You know, it was a translation of the arcade game, Airbuster. But I actually thought it was a better game than even the arcade original, which is very rare in this era of gaming to have something better be better than its arcade origin. Oh, son of a bitch. Damn it. Oh, I didn't want this with full fire. Oh no, oh no, this is not a good combination. Yeah, that was probably for the best. It's a while before I get. Yeah, so much stuff. Ah, yes, the bio stage. It's a very popular thing to have a bio stage in a shooter. It was really because of Konami and Gradius and Life Force, or Salamander, you know, depending on what region you're from. I think it's interesting to have a top-down take on this whole theme. It's great music too. It really matches the mood of the game, or at least the stage. Also, I really I love the PC Engine sound chip. Maybe not as much as the Super Nintendo sound chip from this era, but a bit more than the Genesis sound chip from this era. Although they produce different kinds of sounds, you know, all three of those systems. You know, they have much different approaches to how they want to design sound. But I don't know. I think this is something that's timeless. Sounds good for a good majority of the PC Engine titles too. Nice, the death eyeballs. So this is one of those bosses that doesn't seem like anything when you have a full power-up setup. But boy, if you just have a pea shooter, this guy's like nearly impossible. Oh yes, the desert. Damn pyramid killer. Ugh. Damn it. Ugh, I don't like this. I don't like this setup at all. Too much space you gotta worry about. Ugh, son of a bitch. Ugh, it's so hard to start in the middle. Ugh. Ah, damn it. Oh well. Ah. Ugh. I love that game. This is audap. You're watching Blazing Lazers on Wii U. We'll play this again. I'll practice a little bit more so we can get all the way through to the end. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.